Everybody's just getting off the bus right now. All right. Well, this has been a very productive week in the House as we continue our efforts to repeal and replace Obamacare. As I've said before, this promise is just too important, and the consequences of inaction are just too dire for American families for us just to give up. That is why, over the last couple of weeks, we have encouraged members from across the conference. You see many of them represented here today. We have encouraged members from across the conference to come together and to try and find consensus. In particular, I want to thank Kevin Brady and Greg Walden, our two chairmen, for being so engaged in these conversations and these talks. While we have work to do to get all the way there, we have made some real progress this week. That's why we're all here today. We have come together on a new amendment that we all believe will lower premiums and provide added protections for those facing real challenges gaining access to affordable care. This brings us closer to the final agreement that we all want to achieve. This idea was offered by two of our most conservative members, Gary Palmer and Dave Schweikert, but it has been embraced by a broad spectrum of our conference, people representing all corners of our conference, as you can see by just a few of the members who are here today. I would let the authors speak more about it, but let me just say briefly. This amendment would create a new federal risk-sharing program. It is a high-risk pool that will lower costs for people with pre-existing conditions and lower costs for everyone else, and the authors of this amendment will go into more detail. Following votes today, I've asked the House Rules Committee to mark up this amendment and add it to what we were already considering before. I want to thank Gary and Dave for being so productive throughout this process. Their amendment makes this a much better bill. It gets us closer. This is the kind of collaborative, bottom-up effort that we have been looking for. Like I said, we have more work to do, and those conversations continue to take place, and they really show promise. But this amendment alone is real progress, and it will help us build momentum for delivering on our pledge to the country. I'd like to ask Majority Leader to speak if he could.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you all for being here, and good morning. I think the results of the past couple weeks have been progress, valuable progress. I think that shows in who's standing behind us. It's a microcosm of our conference. From every aspect and every caucus and every group is here today and being united around this amendment. Each and every day we've moved closer and closer to finding agreement in the best way to repeal and replace Obamacare. And you can already see some of the results. That's why today the Rules Committee is going to meet to add an amendment to the American Health Care Act. Now I want to be clear, we still have more work to do. But the Palmer-Schweikert amendment, by allocating funds to a risk-sharing program, will lower premiums for the American people. This is an improvement on our bill that will help the American people bring us closer to our ultimate goal to repeal Obamacare and replace it with something much, much better. Now, the work throughout all three committees have been tremendous, and our chairmen have continued to lead the way. In doing so, they have found, working also with other elements and everybody throughout this conference, that there are a lot of great ideas on how we can improve it. But I want to thank Chairman Walden and Chairman Brady for their continual work throughout their committees, and I want to bring up right now Mr. Palmer.
Thank you. I want to say how encouraged I am with the progress that we're making on this bill, and the whole point of what we're trying to do here is to keep our promise to the American people that we want to do something that brings down premiums, that makes sure that we take care of people with pre-existing conditions, and I believe we do this. And we have a model for this in the state of Maine. They have this risk-sharing arrangement that has worked very well there. It's brought down premiums. It has actually increased the number of people who are insured, and we believe that's what we're going to have with this. This amendment is modeled after Maine. We believe when it's implemented, it'll be a federal program for 3 years, and then the states will be able to take it over. And I think that we're going to see premiums coming down, I think perhaps by next year. I tell people that we believe we can bring down premiums quickly, but that's quickly in an actuarial understanding of what quickly means. So I'm very encouraged with the work of the committees. They have been very helpful and very cooperative in this process. We've had input from a number of members, including Congressman Schweikert, who has been extraordinarily helpful on this, and he understands this extremely well and has helped build a consensus around it. So I'd like for Congressman Schweikert to come up and speak to the issue as well.
Have you ever had that moment where you're heading towards the microphone and you're being whispered in your ear, don't geek out too much? So we'll try to avoid some of the math. This is actually a really neat experience, particularly with the members you see standing behind me and the leadership, where I'd love to say this is a unique idea to a couple of us. It's not. It was one of those when you listen to the membership from the folks from all parts of the country, all parts of the different types of districts, there was sort of this unifying theory. What are we doing to lower premiums for those individuals in that individual healthcare market? And I think this does it. And it actually has a certain elegance to it, both from a budgetary mechanic to grabbing that top piece of risk. Remember, you all know the number. 5% of our brothers and sisters who have chronic conditions are functionally 50% of our healthcare costs. And because of that, we have this hockey stick curve. I believe what we've written here helps us mitigate both their need to stay in the healthcare system, but also mitigate some of the extraordinary costs that have been transferred to other folks who are trying to buy health coverage. So I'm excited. This doesn't close this chapter, but I think it gets us closer. Thank you. And with that, Chairman Walden, where are you? There you are.
Delighted to be here. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to commend all the members who are up here today who have worked so hard, and to thank the Vice President, the head of HHS, and others who have been a very important part of this process, as have the President. We all know legislating, especially in this town, is never a straight line process. A lot of good ideas come flowing in from a lot of directions, and we found a good one here, I think, with this shared support system for those most in need. A great model comes out of the state of Maine, where it has lowered premiums and it has increased enrollment. We knew we needed to do more work in this area to make sure people get coverage they can afford and that they need access to. I want to commend my colleagues, Representatives Palmer and Schweikert. They're both great listeners and they have a lot of terrific ideas, and they were willing to bring these forward and help bring people together, and so I commend them for that. So this is another step in the right direction, and I know we'll keep working forward in this process over the next couple of weeks as we work to refine our product, improve our product, and get to the goal of saving Americans on their premiums, making sure that the Affordable Care Act exchanges don't fully collapse. We see examples again of more insurers contemplating pulling out of the market. Our job is to try and reform this process in a timely manner. These policies will lower premiums. They will return power back to patients and to doctors, and that's where it belongs. And with that, I'd like to welcome the Chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Brayton.
Thank you. This is good news for those who are worried about very expensive health care costs. Since the Energy and Commerce and Ways and Means Committees approved our bills, we've been listening to our members and their ideas and how we can better get decision-making out of Washington and restore it back to the states, where we can restore the free market so Americans have more choices. And above all, how can we make health care more affordable? The risk-sharing proposal by Representative Palmer and Schweikert does this. You know, it's based on proven results at the state level, where people thought out of the box, really focused on the needs of patients with high medical costs, and then took good, solid, thoughtful action on lowering those costs. I want to commend these two members for not just bringing this idea forward, but working with members throughout this conference on reaching consensus. With this proposal, I think we're making a small but important step forward on building consensus and reaching agreement on how we can lower healthcare costs. We do have more work to do, but I think this is an important step forward. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the optics and the work that was done on this over the course of last week, but the divisions are still very real and very clear. Can you explain to me how you bridge the very clear divide between what the House Freedom Caucus wants and what they believe the Vice President has proposed and what the rest of your caucus is?
Yeah, I actually think that divide is narrowing quite quickly. What this idea represents is a goal that everyone from the Freedom Caucus to every other group that's represented here is seeking. How do we lower premiums? How do we lower premiums and continue the protections for people with pre-existing conditions? This idea does that. And so this is one of those ideas that narrows differences and brings people closer toward consensus. There are some other ideas that we're still working on and talking about, trying to build consensus on to continue to do just that. Lower premiums even further, give states more flexibility so they can address the unique needs of their insurance markets while still protecting, making sure we keep those protections for people with pre-existing conditions. So this is one of those ideas that get us closer together, closer to consensus. There are more ideas that we're working on, and that's why we're going to keep working in the days and weeks ahead to go and find that consensus and try and get this bill done.
Back in Philadelphia in February or January, we talked a lot about the Gantt chart, your schedule for
Yep,
how the year was.
still on it.
That was kind of my question, actually.
Yeah.
You've talked now recently about setting artificial deadlines, and I'm wondering to what extent does that mean you still believe in the Gantt chart, and to what extent is this newfound willingness to be flexible?
Jonathan, I will never stop believing in Gantt charts. I'm always a believer in Gantt charts. I'm a big believer in project management. We have in our timeline lots of flexibility built into it. You know why? Because we have to work with the United States Senate. The Senate moves a little more slowly on any given week, day, or month or year than the House does. So we have plenty of cushion built into our plans, and we are well within that spectrum of timeline that we envisioned on dealing with the Obamacare legislation.
Now, also, the healthcare thing impacts how quickly you guys can turn to budget resolution.
All those things are still on the same timeline that we've already been on. Casey.
Mr. Speaker, Devin Nunes has stepped aside from the probe into the Russia ties and meddling in the election. Do you still have faith that he didn't do anything wrong? Did he mishandle classified information?
No, I don't believe so. I just put a statement out probably while you were sitting here, so let me just tell you what my statement is. First of all, Devin Nunes has earned my trust over many years for his integrity and his dedication to the critical work that the intelligence community does to keep Americans safe. He continues to have that trust, and I know he is eager to demonstrate to the Ethics Committee that he has followed all proper guidelines and laws. In the meantime, it is clear that this process would be a distraction to the House Intelligence Committee's investigation into Russian interference in our election. So Chairman Nunes has offered to step aside as the lead Republican on this particular probe, and I fully support his decision. Representative Mike Conaway, a senior member of the committee, will now lead this investigation with respect to the House Republicans on the Intelligence Committee. I'm confident that he will oversee a professional investigation into Russia's actions and follow the facts wherever they may lead.
But clearly, Chairman Nunes made some mistakes here.
I don't think that's the case, but I think Chairman Nunes wants to make sure that this is not a distraction to a very important investigation. So he wants to go clear himself while this investigation continues on without any kinds of distractions. Yeah.
Just to be clear on that, though, given the fact that you say he has your support, you have reiterated several times your trust in him, but the fact that this has been a distraction, does he still have, or do you still have confidence in him to
I
lead
do.
the committee overall?
I do.
Last question.
Right there.
The Freedom Caucus wants to see an amendment to allow for states to waiver out of the community ratings requirement. That could effectively undermine the pre-existing conditions because they could charge sick people more. Can you commit to...
I'm not going to get into the particular details of the conversations that are going on, but we believe that there are additional reforms and ideas that can do both things: protect people with pre-existing conditions and continue to lower premiums and give states flexibility so that more insurers can come into the marketplace. One of the concerns we have is that insurers are leaving left and right, and people are down to like one choice, and in some cases, no choices. That's not good. Having a monopoly isn't a choice, it's a monopoly. And so what we're trying to do is find the kinds of provisions that bring more insurers into the marketplace so that people have more choices, and with more choices, you have more competition, and with more competition, you have lower prices. And we are all dedicated to making sure that people with pre-existing conditions still get the kind of coverage that they need, and that's affordable coverage. And we want to find a way to do that in such a way that everyone else who's in the insurance market can also get lower premiums, affordable choices, and more competition. So that's what this is all about. I'm not going to go into the details of the particulars, but those are the kinds of debates we're having, and that's why this is a step in the right direction. It's closer toward the final goal and agreement, and we're going to keep talking and working on it until we get it right. Thank you.